Welcome to Five Stones Podcast. I'm your host, Raymond, a.k.a. the Real Estate Monkey. I'm actually just one of the hosts. Let me say it that way. That's actually better.
I am Collin. I am the owner of Five Stones Mortgage, and I am called the Great Dane in this moment.
I am Joe Trester, the Real Estate Advocate, and I own nothing.
With no responsibilities. I am the average Dane.
Are we going to talk about mentorship?
Yeah, let's talk about mentorship, especially in the fields that we're in. And Joe has now has for a while been elevated to a managerial position inside of the Modulin Group and has 4 or 5 agents working for him, and just interviewed a new guy yesterday. Just got off the phone with a young lady today who was kind of upset that everybody she was talking to as far as brokerages wanted a large portion of her commission, and she thought that she should get a higher commission. And the problem is, in these fields, including yours, these new people that just get licensed, have no experience in doing the mortgage industry or the real estate industry. So they don't know anything about real estate. And then on top of that, they don't know about the business of the business. Like, how do you open a lockbox? How do you schedule a showing? All those things that are just even ancillary to what I would call the real estate world. And your people have a lot of technology things with putting applications in on software.
A lot of guidelines, a lot of training is required in addition to the mentoring aspect.
Yeah.
I think they're one and the same, but I keep them separate in my mind, because teaching them the business and marketing and all those aspects of getting business are different than the job function of doing the loan once you have it.
Well, and when I go back to the collegiate level of getting education degrees, there's a big difference between theory and practice.
Yeah.
So now they have gone through everything and learned how to be a realtor or an MLO, theoretically, based on you need to know these things. They have no idea how to put that into practice.
Well, getting the license has really nothing to do with the job. It just keeps you out of trouble and teaches you the basics.
It's more of a barrier to entry just to see if you're going to actually go through the process. And Joe's got a girl working for him, has basic questions that you need to know before you're going to go into any managerial or even do the job.
So I heard your conversation, and ultimately she wants leads, she wants a good split, she wants training and mentorship, and doesn't want to pay for it.
Not She wants the highest money possible, but yet the most help possible.
Well, it's good to want things,
and it's not gonna work out that way. And I'm sure that is set up that way in every system, especially where there's licensing involved. The new guy comes in, he's got to learn to do the business, and then he's got to learn the business of the business. So,
and you really only learn it by doing it. I mean, experience is where you learn things.
Well, the old saying, I told one girl came to me, and she was one of my agents. She's like, well, but I want to know everything so that I'll be prepared. I'm like, okay, well, so first of all, the old adage about 10,000 hours, you guys have heard that, 10,000 hours to become an expert. I told her, I said, if you work full-time, 40 hours a week, that's 2,000 hours a year. That's 5 years to become an expert. And that's if you're working 40 hours a week. So yes, there are going to be things that you are not going to know, and you can't wait that long, because you'll be out inside of a year if you don't close a deal soon. So that apprenticeship, which is what I look at it like, is very important.
Yes.
And you're going to pay for it. You've got to pay for it. You're not, like I said, it's good to want the high split, but you're paying for education from somebody.
Well, and I think the other thing that happens, and I will freely admit, and I've not been in it nearly as long as you, but we both still occasionally see something like, holy crap, we've never seen that before. But because of the experience and the things that we've been involved with and done before, we can take that situation and break it down into little pieces and attack each little piece and know what to do with those. We may not have seen the whole painting before, but we understand the paints that are being used.
I'm like, you have not made a mistake that I didn't make. I said the only advantage I have is 23 years.
Yeah.
I've seen this now 9 times. Trust me, this is what's going to happen. She's like, well, are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. I've seen this. So that is where the time in this business actually pays off. I mean, you were in banking and now in mortgage. You've been doing it 22, 23 years.
You gotta see things a few times before you understand.
Yeah.
And like Joe said, there are times, just several years ago when we went through that appraisal gap situation. I remember the first time somebody said, hey, what is this? And I'm like, hell, I don't know. I have not seen that.
That was new.
That was
To
new.
everyone.
But like Joe said, I was able to go, okay, here's what they're saying because I know what the gap between the appraisal and the purchase price is, and I could use all the basic knowledge that I've learned, and we got it figured out.
Yep.
But it was new, and I'd been doing the business at that point 19 years, and I'm like, well, never seen that.
Well, and I also want to point out, it doesn't make someone bad because they don't know. I think some people think, oh, I'm bad at this, I'm terrible, I'm never going to figure it out because they don't know everything in that moment. And for everyone, that moment of clarity comes at a different point. It's like you start out and you're like, I don't know anything. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And then at some point, and I don't know when it is, you like wake up one day and you realize, wait a minute, I actually know what to do on 90% of this. And it just happens. And it happens with time and energy and doing.
And the funny part is that concept actually plays out in everything.
In everything.
I mean, flip the script on it and think about golf. I mean, Collin's been golfing 100 years. It's easy for him to look at the ball and go, okay, well, I really need to fade around that tree and put it on the green. And you and I are looking at it and going, holy crap, tree's in the way. Now what do I do?
Or we look at it and go, I really need to do this, but I don't have the foggiest idea how I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's the next iteration. There's a tree, what am I going to do? There's a tree, I know what I need to do, and I have no idea how to get there.
Yeah.
And that is how you know that you're growing.
What you need to do is not get behind the tree in the first place.
That's the right answer.
That's the right answer.
First you start out with not being able to diagnose or identify, and then you grow into being able to
recognize,
identify, but you still can't diagnose.
Yeah.
And then the diagnosis comes in.
This translates into leads in my business, and I'm sure yours is the same, but leads in my business, I know in the beginning I'm going to give you X amount of leads, and the first 20 you're going to fumble and mess out. You're not going to know what to do. And then the next 20, you're going to improve greatly. And by lead 80 or 100, you're going to have your mojo down. And it's going. And I know as a business owner, I'm sacrificing 50 or 75 leads to be test subjects, and that's an expense, right?
Yeah, to get them up to speed on their.
So I just can't let you in the door, pay you full boat, and give you these leads, which are up in smoke essentially, because I know you're going to fumble. So in the meantime, I'm training you. I'm giving you feedback. I'm taking time away from other productive money-making activities to invest time into your future of money-making. So leads comes to mind that in the beginning you're going to suck. And I know that, and I don't expect you to convert a higher level.
Well, and to Raymond's point, it does translate into everything. I mean, even from our very beginning. Yeah. I mean, it's not like we come flying out of the womb like Stewie on Family Guy. Okay, we're not walking, we're not talking. We fall over how many times before we figure out how even to stand, and then we fall over before we figure out how to walk. It's the same thing in everything that we do. That's why apprenticeship has been so popular through all of history. You didn't go to college 400 years ago. You went down the street and you learned how to make something, and then that was how you learned.
The other point to lead, I was going to talk about leads. This young lady wants leads and the low split and all that. As a person that buys a lot of leads, you can't not get something back. You have to recover that overhead cost.
Yeah, well,
and that comes only in the form of a split of commission, because the only way we make it money is closing loans, bringing in money. So that's why I pay a higher. If you generate it on your own, I don't have to pay to bring that name in the door. I'll give you a higher payout. If I have to pay to get the name in the door for you to call, I'm going to take a bigger piece of that.
Well, I told her, I said at the beginning, you're going to want that training director that's available full time so you can just walk in and go, hey, I got a question. And she's like, yes, that's what I want. I said, okay, then understand this. How do you think he's getting paid? Because he's not doing business. He's not out getting clients and selling homes. He's full time in the training director. He has to get paid, and that pay comes in the form of when you close, 40% of your money is going to the company so they can pay his salary.
That's right.
Yeah, you can go to get a high split, but the guy training you is the one actually is the lead salesman, and he may not be available because he's out on the road selling or at a closing and all that. So it's a trade-off, and you're paying for that.
People that come from the corporate world, I think, struggle with this concept more than small business people, because you and I, we actually write the check for those things, where corporate might have a trainer on staff, they pay $75,000 a year, and that's coming from maybe they have other forms of revenue.
Yeah.
And they're willing to take a little loss to invest in employees. But in a small business, it's much more exposed because it is me, and if I need to do other things to make money, I got to stop for 4 hours and teach you.
And there's a huge difference between like sales jobs and a just an average corporate job as well. I mean, sales job, no, but there is. I mean, there are obviously corporate sales positions. But in general, anything that they are supplying for you, if you can't recoup that money, there is no purpose in it. So, I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They're not going to just give it to you for free. So, I mean, if they're giving it to you in that corporate setting, they're expecting you to build that into what you're charging someone else to bring that money in.
Well, I mean,
and when you're not charging someone, you're the one being charged. It just is that way.
I mean, you get into that, and in the corporate world, I was in the corporate world for a number of years, and I was always reminded by a plant manager that my job was not an income-producing job. Matter of fact, It was an income-sucking job. I was in the safety environmental world, and we didn't produce income, but we spent money like you wouldn't believe. And he was always reminding me of that, hey, we've got to sell another 100 widgets because you want, this environmental permit that we need, or we want new safety equipment. And that money had to come from somewhere.
Yes.
There was an animosity in the banking world amongst the operational people always, because they felt like the salespeople were screwing around and going out to dinner and playing, taking clients golf. Oh, they don't do anything. But in the reality, in the real world, they are bringing money into the door that pays all those bills.
Yeah.
And it was you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, and there's a difference between contract and normal like salaried employee as well. When you're a contract salesperson, these people may not pay anything if they don't do anything. But if they're going to do something and rely on someone else to feed them, that comes at a cost.
Some of my LOs want to get their own leads, and I think that's wonderful. Because they get the full high payout if they spend the money and the overhead to buy those leads themselves.
Well, then that's what that's what you want from the beginning anyway. Yes, go out and do it yourself. That's how you make more money.
So,
and the more you do, the more you make.
Yes.
The ones that figure that out, it does take some investment.
It is a huge mind shift for a lot of people that have never been in, especially commission sales.
Yep.
If the second you go into commission sales, the first mind switch you need to understand is the more I work, the more I get paid. People are always like, well, I was on salary and I got $900 a week every week on my desk. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I had $900 on Tuesday. I could have stopped and made the same thing. Or I want pay raise, just do more sales.
Yes.
So they kind of control the income, and that is way better because now you're getting paid on your actual worth. If I bring in $3 million, I'm going to get a section of $3 million. If somebody's on salary, hey, I get paid $40 an hour, whether we make $3 million or $30 million, that's a little less incentivized. So, on the operation side, when I was there, we always like you said, oh, salesmen don't do anything. Now I'm on the sales side, and I'm like, you guys wouldn't be here
Yeah, if there's no
if
sales,
I didn't make a sale.
if there's no loans, there's no operational need.
Yeah. If there's no money coming in the door through my sale, we don't need any of you guys.
I think as consumers, we are trained to kind of see what we can get and ask for the world. So that's what's coming out of her
Yeah.
out of her mouth and her mindset. The young lady you were talking to earlier, and I don't begrudge her for asking. It's good to want things, but in the end, she's going to have to understand that I can't have the world and not pay for it. So
Yeah. Well, can't have the $400,000 house and
So the question begs,
$200,000 payment.
How does she decide where to go? Well, I would, as an employee like her, I would be interviewing the places I'm considering as almost, okay, what kind of training am I going to get? How serious is that person? How much experience does that person have? Leads, what do they look like? Are they worthwhile? What is the expectation?
And if they're taking 30% of my money at place X, Y, and Z, what am I getting for that 30% of my money at X, Y, and Z?
Both of those comments are what she and I had the discussion
Yeah.
about. I told her that money should not be her item, number one on her item at the beginning, because everybody's going to take a large portion of your commission out of the gate because you don't know anything. I said, what you should be asking is questions like that. And it's almost like she should be interviewing them, not necessarily them interviewing me. What do I get? Is there a full-time guy that I can talk to? Can I come and sit in the office? Can I shadow another agent? Because those are the most important things. Money should not be, in our world, out of the gate. Your first year, that's not going to be your concern. You better get used to that. You're going to pay a large chunk to learn, and then when you get good, now you go to another firm or renegotiate your contract and go, look, I don't need that full-time guy. I don't need that lead given to me because I'm doing all that, and for that, now I want 95% of the work, and I would gladly give that.
First year LOs typically make $40,000 or $50,000. I don't know, is it similar in real estate, 30, 40,
Yeah.
50,000? So do you want a high split of 40,000 now? Or do you want a low split of 40,000 and a high split of 150 next year?
Yeah.
And you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Maybe that's another way to deliver the message to them. You're not going to make any money, so a high split of nothing, no big deal. But if somebody's willing to give you leads and give you all that stuff, and they aren't going to charge you for it, their time isn't worth that much, and
Well-
they can't.
what's the Bible say about teaching a man to fish? You know, if you give a man a fish, you feed him. If you teach him to fish, you feed him forever. And that's literally what we're talking about. I mean, there are agents out there that don't work for my company that are literally still profiting on stuff I taught them 5, 10, 20 years ago, because that was the ground floor of learning how to be a real estate agent. And now they're using that somewhere else and profiting from it.
Yes, making a fortune.
And that's what you want to do, but you got to get there first.
How much does the education cost for a $100,000 job outside the real estate world? 80,000, 100,000, 200,000?
Probably
So-
closer to the two, yeah.
So giving up 50 grand in commissions right now to get that education
Yeah.
is a value.
I tell people that to school. I said, nowhere else in the world do you know of a job that you could potentially make 100 grand your first year and your education's $500, you know, in 1 year. So,
And the ones that make 100,000 in the first year aren't necessarily real estate experts. They just
Hustle.
yeah,
are the hustlers that are, they don't get paralyzed by fear needing to be an expert before they make a call.
Well, and
They just start making calls and learn the hard way, and then their ramp up is 6 weeks instead of 12 months.
yeah,
well, and the other thing that they always act like someone is getting in their pocket. The reality is, it isn't their client.
yeah,
It is the managing broker's client, and he is or she is taking a risk in
You mean like
bringing
a team?
taking a risk and bringing that person in, because it's not just that new agent who has their name out there. It's that managing broker. It's that franchise. It's that, all of that is at risk over this. And
Yeah.
You're not giving up anything because it was never yours to begin with.
Yeah.
I think ultimately we try to ramp them up, but we also just keep them out of trouble. So if their concern is getting in trouble, we will keep you out of trouble. I'm speaking for this table. We'll
Yeah.
keep you out of trouble, give you the playbook, answer all your questions, prepare you.
All right.
Ultimately, you just
And then you will become successful, but it will not happen overnight.
No.
Even with the most aggressive salesperson that's the best, it's still a ramp up period, like you were saying, because I keep saying it, and I don't know if I distinguish it. They've got to learn the business of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to negotiate, how to live. Then they've got to learn the business of the business, like how do you open a lockbox? I remember that question came to me with one of my agents, and I was the managing broker, and I'd been in the business 15 years, and she called me. She's like, how do you open a lockbox? And I remember the back of my head, I thought, how do you not know how to open a lockbox? And then I had to put myself in their place and go, well, I guess if this is the first time she's ever seen one, then yeah, it might be kind of confusing. So I had to bite my tongue and walk through it with her, and now she's out, you know, with another, and she's probably opened hundreds of lock boxes in her life. And that's another thing as managers here we need to remember, because I could say probably it's the same question 40 times. I could list you right now probably 20 questions that I've heard 100 times, because it's new people all the time.
Yep.
And you've got to remember that as a manager like that. My initial thought was, how do you not?
it takes some patience.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing. We have the same thing over and over. All the new people. How do you calculate income? What about this person's self-employed?
Yeah.
Yes, that. The same 5 or 6 things. And the way to learn it is to do some loans
and do it.
Go through the process. And yes, you're going to fumble and have questions.
And make a mistake.
Make the mistake. You won't forget twice.
We talked to a young lady today that made a mistake, and it cost her personally about $4,000. Yep. And she actually said to us, I will never make that mistake again, because now I know what I'm doing and I learned to do it. And that was a great motivator.
Yeah.
You know, not getting paid $4,000 was a great motivator to learn.
I like what Ron Swanson said about fishing in that story. He said, I guess you're going to start, because fishing's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. So,
are you smoking New Worlds today? I've got Bolivar. These are new for me. They're Maduro, but they're good.
I will tell you, I'm probably derelict in the three of us, because I'm still smoking the New World.
AJ from
Oliva G.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I probably stray away from this cigar probably less than either one of you two guys.
These Bolivars are smooth and they're not as strong a flavor as what I typically like, but you know, if I'm on my second cigar of the day, sometimes I like to have a little bit of a lighter smoke that doesn't destroy my.
So you go lighter second.
I usually start off bold and coffee and bold cigar, and then later in the day we'll lighten up.
Huh. I've always heard you should start lighter in the morning and go darker. Now, I will tell you, like I just said, I'm the same almost all the time. It's the same cigar. I've been smoking the same cigar, barring a few here and there, probably for 3 years now. So it's the same, and it's a Maduro Dark that I smoke in the morning, like I said, with coffee, but it's the one I smoke at night, too. And obviously during filming.
Yes.
So, but you guys, I know you like that.
I smoke a variety of stuff. I like Padrones. I like these La Gloria Cubanas. They're very, very bold. They're double Maduro.
Double Maduro.
Double Maduro.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting ready to go back to New World. I have a couple of boxes on order of the Gobernadors.
Yeah.
But
I've got other stuff in my humidor at home, but I will tell you, there's 4 or 5 cigars in there that have probably been in almost a year now, because I very seldom stray away from this cigar, which is funny. I did one other cigar for about 2 or 3 years, and I don't even remember how I got onto these, but since then I've been on this one for 2 or 3 years now.
I would say good on that gal that called you today, because I think that's the thing you should do is call someone that you know has experience and you have some respect for,
Yeah.
and ask them, what do you think I need?
What should I be looking
What
for?
should I be looking for? And you conveyed that to her very well. It made perfect sense to me. Hopefully she digests that, goes to a place where she'll get some mentorship and so forth. But
Yeah.
maybe a listener has a question, they're welcome to call us.
Yes.
And we'll invest some time in helping them make the right choice.
So, all right, I'm good.
I think we're good.
Thank you very much. See you again later.
Harumph.